What can we learn from the story of creation? And how can knowing Christ is our creator help us shape our own lives? That is the topic of today's episode. So stay tuned.
Welcome to Bible Women in Bathrobes, the podcast where faith meets comfort. Join us Tuesday mornings as the gals from Women Warriors of Light and their guests don bathrobes and dive into the inspiring stories of women in the Bible and the teachings of Jesus Christ. From Esther's bravery to the Sermon on the Mount, we explore it all with warmth, laughter, sisterhood, and maybe even a few sleepy-eyed moments. Tune in live or at your leisure as we learn lessons from Scripture which empower women today.
Welcome to Bible Women and Bathrobes. I'm your host, Tiffany Fletcher, and today we are talking about the names of Christ, specifically the name of Creator. And with us today, we have our founding member, Tamara K. Anderson. Welcome, Tamara.
So glad to be here.
And we have Jen Brewer, one of our awesome advisory board members. Welcome, Jen.
So great to be here.
We're so happy to have you, and we're really excited to talk about the story of creation today. So let's just get started with the story of creation in Genesis 1. And so, Tamara, I want to start with you. As you were reading through this story of creation, what are some of the key points that really stood out to you as you were reading through it and thinking about the creation and Christ as creator?
Oh my goodness. This is something I've kind of been pondering because I knew this episode was coming up. And as I was looking at Genesis 1, there were so many things that I found I could pick out of it. First is that nothing is impossible to God. I mean, he can take out of basically just whatever's out there in the universe and create a sun and moon and stars and a world that spins perfectly around in its position in the sun and that there's enough to sustain life. Nothing is impossible to God. I think that's one of the key principles we learn just even before we even start reading verses in here. But what I loved as I dove into the story of creation in Genesis, it says, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. And then it says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. I'm just going to pause even right there. I love that whatever God moves upon, whatever Jesus touches, there can be light in it, right? That it can take darkness and remove it. Just his presence brings light. And I think there's so much symbolism just in those first few verses of Jesus being a creator that we can apply today, right? So I'll just start there. And if you guys want to keep going, we can keep going.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, it just gives me goosebumps, even just thinking about that. First of all, that nothing is impossible to God and that he has created everything. And so surely when things are hard for us, he can help us. He created the earth. Nothing is impossible to him. But also that symbolism of light and darkness, it made me think as you were reading how interesting it is that the darkness was already there, right? It was the darkness. And sometimes I feel like in our lives, it's just like the darkness sometimes just comes uninvited. It just kind of overwhelms us sometimes because it is just there. It's a part of life. But if we invite the light in, the Savior, like it moves the darkness away, just like the light moved the darkness away when the earth was created. There's so much symbolism in there. So much symbolism in there.
Can I just tack something else on that has kind of been moving in my mind? As I read the story of creation again, it reminded me that it takes time to create. God could have probably snapped his fingers and had everything happen, super fast, but there was a process that had to take place with creation. And little pieces fell into place one by one in the right order, in the right time. You've got to get the earth there and then water and kind of an environment where things can grow. And then you have plants that need to grow. And then you need to have life beginning to take place, fish and birds and other animals. And then finally, you come to his crowning creation of man, right? Who has dominion over the earth, which would be an interesting topic to talk about. But interesting, so many things we can glean just from that pattern of creation, that Jesus takes his time when he's creating something. And as a creator, it takes me time to do things too, right? And so to be patient with the process, to be patient with the timing, to be patient because good things can be created, but it doesn't just happen. It takes work, it takes patience, it takes strategizing. And I know sometimes as I get impatient, I'm like, chop, chop, let's move. I want to skip from A to X. And God's like, oh no, dear Tamara, that's not how this works. So God is a patient God in all that he creates, whether it is the world around us or creating in us a new heart or a clean heart, as it says in Psalms. Creation takes time, but it's worth it to him, and it's worth it to us. We just have to be more patient with ourselves.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And also, isn't it interesting that even in God's creation, it began with light? So for us as well, like if we want growth, if we want any of the things that God created, it begins with light for us as well in our creation process. Jen, what are your thoughts?
One thing that just was like a megaphone to me this time through the creation was at the end of almost every day, there was a moment that he stepped back and saw that it was good. That he stepped back and just thought, that he kind of just took a moment to breathe it in. And I get so caught up on what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? That each day was very focused. And by day, like thousands of years, maybe. Okay, each unit of time was very focused. But at the end, he took that moment to step back and see that it's good. And I think I shouldn't speak for all people or all Christians, but I have a tendency to think, I can't think my own work is good. That's prideful. I have to tear myself down. I can't see the good in it. But everything he did, he stood back at the end of each section. He didn't wait until the full end. Every section he stood back and saw, yeah, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
This is good.
Yeah.
I like where this is going.
Can I just tack something onto that? I was just thinking that one of the principles I've learned in goal setting is something that one of my mentors taught me. He said, measure the gain and not the gap. Because I think especially as we're making progress on big things that we're creating, big goals that we're setting, sometimes we just see the gap. We're like, oh, I did this, but I have so far to go and I still have to do this and this and this and this and this. And I think God is giving us a pattern here, right here in this first chapter of the Old Testament. Be grateful for what you have done and recognize that. And I know that as I started to implement this process, like I started reviewing my weeks, and sometimes I would say, okay, I set these goals for the week, and then I come up to the next week and I would journal, every Monday, how did I do? And sometimes I would always say, oh, how did I do with comparison to the goals? Oh, well, I got a little bit done on this one and this one, but I didn't even get to touch these. And then God taught me this. But what did you get done, Tamara? What did you get done? And so then I started journaling. Well, this child was having a problem and I was able to help them. And then I made meals for my family. And then, and all of a sudden, those gaps I was seeing, and that the adversary wants to shine a light and say, oh, look at everything you did not do. You're lost. I'm sorry. You're worth nothing. But God was teaching me, but look how much you did get done, and be grateful for what you did get done and recognize that. And I think that's where the principle of gratitude even comes into play. I can recognize with a thankful heart what God enabled me to do today. And that is a powerful principle. Look for the good that I have done. Do I still have room to grow? Absolutely. We're still in the process of creating who we are, and it's going to take time. Right?
Oh, that's really good. I think both of you have said some really, really good points. That some things that I've thought of as you were talking is, I love, Jen, how you said sometimes we get on ourselves and we think, oh, we can't see what's good because that's being boastful. But no, it's showing appreciation for what God has allowed us to create, like just being in there and being able to do that. And it made me think about how we are God's creation, right? Like we are his creation. And how sad it must be for him when we degrade ourselves or when we say bad things about ourselves or when we don't celebrate what he has given us in our lives and the good, like Tamara said, the good that we are doing. Like I'm sure that up in heaven he is celebrating every good thing that we are doing. Like he is just so grateful for our willingness to step up and be creators with him. And so as his creations, I think that it's important for us to show gratitude for the good in ourselves. And like Tamara said, recognize that there's going to be gaps and that's okay because that's what life is. But if we can see the good, then it will help us to be the good in those moments and to be able to see the good in others and recognize the good that they are doing and help them appreciate it as well. I think, God, he tells us it's good. It is good. You have done well. And I think that's something important that we need to understand, that as his creation, we are also good and we are seeking him, and to create with him. So some of the thoughts that I that came up with, I wanted to move to a scripture that really I found very fascinating in Isaiah 40. It's verse 28 through 31. I just want to read. It says, "Hast thou not known, hast thou not heard that the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary. There is no searching of his understanding. He giveth power to the faint, unto them that have no might he increaseth strength. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint." And it hit me differently, going along with the idea that we are his creation, that of course he knows how to help us. We can wait on him because he created us. He knows how to renew our strength. He knows who we are individually. He knows how to help us so that we can run faster and our legs will not be weary and our feet will be able to walk because he created us. He created us and he has purpose for us. And he is grateful for our willingness to use those legs and those feet and those hands to serve him and to wait upon him and to allow him be a co-creator in our lives as we learn to be creators in our own lives as well. And I love how it says that he is the creator of the ends of the earth and fainteth not. That he does not faint in how he continues to help create us and to mold us into the person that he needs us to be. Any thoughts on that, Jen? We'll go with you first this time.
So many. I'm trying to think, okay, hone it in. One thing that hit me about like the gaps that we feel like we have. And at first the thought that came in, well, God is the God of gaps. Like he fills in everything. And then I realized, it's not just he's waiting there to fill in the gaps. He's the whole thing. He is the entire backdrop. And our creation is because of his creation. It's all a part of the same whole. And he's so everly patient And I am so not patient. He's okay waiting. He's okay in the waiting space, and I am not. And so that hit me. Like, you gotta wait. You will have your strength renewed. You
Mhm.
just you gotta wait. But in the wait, you can still step back and see that it's good.
Mm.
You
Right.
can still, we hear the phrase a lot, your mess to your masterpiece, and I want to get from the mess to the masterpiece. But he teaches, no, find joy in the increments. Find joy along the way while you're resting, while you're waiting. It's all, I feel like the waiting is the stopping. And then I'll rest, renew, and then start again and create. That's all part of it. The waiting and the renewing. Like, when you think, I don't want to go on a big tangent, but I have a massive love affair with trees. And I did a big deep dive several years ago on the seasons of trees. And we all love to see the blooming and we love to see the green, but the winters are just as vital, that waiting period. If you don't have the winter, you don't have the blossoms in the spring. So it's all a part of it. Even the waiting is the creating.
I love that. It made me think about, as you were talking about the trees. That is true. Like in the winter, that is when the roots start growing deeper. So there is growth going on. It's just growth that we don't see. It's growth that is the inside, underneath that, and that is the growth. Like in the waiting period, it's not a sense of just stopping everything. It is a sense of, okay, I'm waiting on the Lord. So how am I growing my roots deep in Him? So when the next storm comes, when the next trial comes, I do not get blown away by the wind, right? Like just putting those roots deep in Him as our creator and being able to be still while not being still, within and really finding refuge in Him. That's beautiful. Thank you. Tamara, thoughts?
Yes, I was thinking that just building upon that verse that you guys were talking about, there is a beautiful verse in Psalm 19, actually a couple verses, Psalm 19, 1 through 3, and it talks about how the earth basically can teach us about Jesus and testify of him. It says, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament sheweth his handiwork. So you can see him in the sky, you can see him on the earth. And then listen to this. I had never noticed these verses before. Day unto day uttereth speech, night unto night sheweth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. And I just paused and thought, what am I seeing, hearing, and learning by watching creation around me, by looking at God's creation? And this morning, before we jumped on this podcast, I took just a quick lap around the block just to get out and stretch my legs. And right now, when we're recording this, this is spring. And the trees are budding and they're pink and they're white. Whereas 1 month ago, they were stark and it was winter and it was snowing. And I'm just like, there is a pattern here, that you guys were just talking about, that there are seasons that are dark and cold and it's snowing. And we could maybe focus on that for a while. We're just like, I'm miserable right now. I am so miserable. If you're a bulb, you're planted and it's cold and it's wet and you don't have any light. And all of a sudden, the snow begins to melt and it melts into water, which is nourishment. And then the sun comes up and there's more sunlight and the weather improves. And all of a sudden you're budding and you're beautiful. And I just think, oh my word, there is symbols all around us in nature. If we pause and maybe turn off our phones, take a breath, look in nature and ask God, teach me. Teach me what I can learn by looking at the things around me, by watching the sunrise, by this past year we went to as a family to the north rim of the Grand Canyon. It's one of those dark skies, and we happened to be there on a night when there was no moon, there was no light, and so you could see the stars, and we just sat there as a family watching the sunset and the stars come out, and it was glorious. It was so incredible. We don't get to see it because of so much light pollution, but I just remember sitting there in awe. Look at what God has done. Look how beautiful it is. And if we can pause and look at the beauty in that, what is he doing with us in the process of the winters and springs, summers and falls, and another winter of our life? What can he do with us? And what is nature teaching us? Anyway, I just had to pull that out because it's kind of been on my mind.
I love it. It's beautiful. It makes you think about how the transition from winter to spring, like when we take that time to be still and grow our roots, like we come out with new growth. We come out with new understanding. We come out with a greater appreciation and beauty for the winter months because it does nourish us for the spring and the summer and the fall, and it's beautiful. And I love how it talks about seeing God in nature. It's interesting. So I homeschool my kids. And so I remember a long time ago, my kids were younger and we were reading a history book. And in the history book, it was talking about how there was no sunrise and there was no sunset, that those are actually, they're actually just a figment of what we see of, and what it really is, like it's an illusion. And what it really is that when it's the sunset, it's really the earth turning away from the sun. And in the morning when the sun rises, and the sunrise comes, it is the earth turning back to the sun. And that, I had such a spiritual moment with that because it just helped me recognize the truth of turning away. When we turn away from the sun, meaning the Son of God, it plunges us in darkness. It becomes night, and we struggle to see. But if we turn back to the sun, meaning the Son of God, that is where the light is, and that is by him we can see all other things. And it was such a divine blessing for me to understand that at that time, because homeschooling young kids is hard, and I was struggling. I felt a lot of darkness in my life at that time, and I realized I need to turn to him more so that I can receive his light. And it really put me on that journey. I was already on a journey of light, but it really helped me appreciate it, understand it at a deeper level because of nature and what I learned about nature in a history book. Isn't that in a science book? Isn't that just such a beautiful thing? Like, so thanks for sharing that. That is really beautiful. I didn't realize that there was scripture that just backs that up, that we really can like find in nature those lessons that God needs us to experience at this moment in our life, in this day. So Jen, do you have any thoughts?
I'm just basking in all of your thoughts, and I keep going back to he created us, and he created us as creators, that he wants us to be creators. He wants us to do it with him. He didn't, all of this world wasn't made just to say, oh, it's good, it's great, have fun, go play. It was, everything is with a purpose. And he is trying to teach us how to create in our sphere. And there's one quote that I absolutely love that said, God left us the world unfinished for man to work his skill upon. He left the electricity in the cloud, the oil in the earth. He left the rivers unbridged and the forest unfelled and the cities unbuilt. God gives to man the challenge of raw materials, not the ease of unfinished things, or not the ease of finished things. He leaves the pictures unpainted, the music unsung, and the problems unsolved, that man might know the joys and glories of creation. And that, because the world itself is beautiful, it blows me away. And then sometimes I think, and then he said, go add to it. What can you do? What can you find? He didn't come and tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, there's this thing called electricity. You might want to try it. He allows us to do our own discoveries and take part in that joy of kind of being that partner with him. I love that aspect of it. that it's all about with a purpose for us.
I love that. And you think about the creation, like he took so much joy in creation that he wants us to experience joy and to be able to have that in our lives. And even like I find it interesting that even in the story of creation with of and then you have the story of Adam and Eve, like he didn't name the animals. He made them name the animals. And then he gave them the ability to create their lives based on his experience and his how he creates. I feel like in our lives that like learning the story of creation gives us a great idea of how we can create in our own lives. Begin with light, be still and see the goodness, step back and know it takes time. And by learning those beautiful lessons that we can find as we see God and the Savior as the creator, like we can understand how we ought to be creating in our own lives as well. Tamara, any thoughts?
Well, this is something that I have an accountability group with a bunch of author friends that we meet every week, and we have for probably the last 7 years. And I know you guys can appreciate this since you've both written books before, but in the process of creating and writing and kind of getting into that zone of writing and creating, it's sometimes we have writer's block and we're not getting there. We're not getting there. And we're like, I don't know what to add here. Lord, please help me see what this next part looks like. And sometimes we have to go and have experiences that then, something clicks into place. And now I can add that part. Do you know what I mean? And so I find it so interesting that in creation, as we partner with the creator, as we partner with Jesus in creating art, dance, music, whatever it is, that when we invite him in, he makes it all flow. He makes it all better. There are times when I have sat and I get in the zone and it's like I am in tune with him and everything just flows. And I could sit there and type and type and type and it just comes, right? Um, and I kind of lose track of time. And my husband will come in and say, "Hey, it's 6 o'clock. Are we eating dinner tonight?" I'm like, "Whoops." Tamara lost track of time. She was in creation mode. And it's not always writing. Sometimes I'm creating a workshop, or sometimes I've created music before and feeling inspiration come for that. And so it's such a beautiful experience. And I believe that anytime anyone is creating anything, that God is involved. Whether you are a believer in God or not, he is involved. And I think especially as mothers, we know that God is with us as we create that life inside of us. It is hard and it requires effort and energy and it's exhausting and oh my goodness. But that kind of goes back to that verse that you read in Isaiah of that if we're weary, God isn't. If we're tired, he's not. And we can lean on him and have waiting periods. We don't have to go all the time. And he will strengthen us in those waiting periods. He will renew us in those waiting periods. And so just being patient with the process, right? It is a process. Be patient with ourselves. Be patient with God. Maybe we need to learn something before we finish whatever we're creating. It's just a process, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I do think, though, I think that sometimes I think creation is a part of God's world. I do think, though, I do believe that the adversary sometimes uses creation for his own, whatever. So I think that not all creation is probably good, but I believe that it is if you begin with light. And I think that that's why God showed that. Like he's like, this is light and light is good because it is from him. And so when we start by turning the light on in our lives and we start with that light, any creation that we do with light is going to be good because it is going to be guided and directed by him. And as co-creators, we will make beautiful things to help his children seek him and find him. And I find the creation process fascinating and beautiful, and I love it. And I'm excited to create more things as God invites us to, right? Well, ladies, our time is flown by. It always does. I always look at the clock and I'm like, whoa, we are there. So let's do wrap up. Let's see what your thoughts are, your final thoughts. So Tamara, we'll start with you this time.
Okay. I think one of my favorite things about Jesus being the creator is being out in nature. And when I'm in nature, I feel close to my creator. And so if I feel a gap, feel like he's not close, if I just take time and spend time in his creation, then he does renew me. That verse in Isaiah is a part of how he renews me. Being out in creation renews me, and it is good. And so I'm thankful that he has given us this earth and that we can see his love in everything around us if we look for it.
I love that. Thank you so much. Jen, final thoughts.
I love the part of creation for me that really resonates is the co-creation, it's almost a yearning that he has to have us participate in it. And especially as women, we have such a sacred way to be co-creators when, for those of us who bring children into the world, we can be that ultimate co-creator with God. And one thing that just touched on me was how John introduces Christ, that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And he's talking about Jesus Christ, about how creation needs action. It needs speaking. There was the spirit, we can talk about a spiritual creation, but he needs us to act, to create, and to speak our truth and to speak into creation with that.
That's beautiful. As a speaker, words, and a writer, words matter to me. They really do. And I really do believe that they create our lives. Like we can create our lives based on the words that we speak to ourselves and about others. And so I love that. That's beautiful. I think my takeaway is kind of combined with all of those and more. Like I want to spend more time in nature and find the lessons that God has for me in nature. I love that it all speaks of him. I think of Saint Francis of Assisi. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he wrote the hymn "All Creatures of Our God and King," and he believed that all creatures, all things, were his brothers and sisters. And he called them brother, sun, sister, moon. Like he believed that they were all part of the creation, and he would give sermons to birds, and there were people that said that birds would stay in the trees and listen to him. And there is something about nature. He believed that nature reflected God, and I truly believe that nature reflects God, and that as we spend time in nature, that we will find God there, and we will find the lessons that he needs for us to know. And I also just this time around recognize the importance of starting with light. Like in whatever we do, we want a good day, create a good day, start it with light. If we want to create a strong family, make sure that light is involved. It pushes back the darkness, and I think that that's a very beautiful symbolism in the creation of the world that Christ modeled for us. So I hope that there have been things that you've learned today in today's podcast that have been significant for you. I hope that as you have listened to us talk about God and Christ as the creator, that it has sparked in you ideas and feelings of wanting to experience creation in your own life. I hope that you take some things away from this and that you begin to increase the light in your life so that you can create those things that God intends you to create, and that you can appreciate the creation that he's already given us in nature and also in ourselves. So my challenge for you this week is to go out there and create something beautiful for yourself, your family, and those around you, and take time to enjoy God's creation. Until next time, God bless.
Thanks for tuning in to Bible, Women, and Bathrobes, hosted by Women Warriors of Light. We've loved exploring the stories of remarkable women or the teachings of the Savior today with you. If today's episode brought someone special to mind, be sure to spread the word. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a moment of inspiration and sisterhood. Just a friendly reminder, all opinions we share are entirely personal, as we are trying to decipher and apply Bible teachings just like you are. Until next time, stay faithful, and may your journey be blessed and illuminated by God's love.